Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. All things Middle-earth here with a video looking at the tier 3 Elven commander, Gil-Galad, who has become one of my favorite commanders in the game by far. This guy is an absolute monster. We're going to look at what items to use, what skills to use, all that good stuff coming up in just 1 second. So starting out with Gil-Galad, you're going to need the High King of the Noldor's banner to unlock him. You're going to need quite a few of these, and the ideal build for Gil-Galad, the best build I should say, is going to be at Respect level 5. However, almost probably more than any other commander, I think Gil-Galad has fantastic use at Respect 0. So if you have full pulled him or you just unlocked him and you're watching, don't click away just because I said R5 is the best. He does have a best build at R5. But his R0 build is very, very good as well. So that's really good news. If this is someone you full pulled, you're going to be able to start using him right away and see some very, very good reports. So anyway, the respect item is going to be the High King in the Noldor's banner. So look out for those in your exchange. May put that on your wish list if it's someone you're wanting to get. In terms of the ability and the stats for Gil-Galad, he has the leader ability. So he's going to get an extra 5 command once he reaches level 20. And his stats are going to be 188 base value on the might with 1.9 per level. 190 base value on the focus with 2.02 per level, and 127 base on the speed with 1.08 per level. So pretty balanced on the might and the focus there. Speed's a little bit lower, but it's not a problem at all for this guy. He is an absolute monster. We will take a quick peek at his R10 item. I believe it's the Aglos is how you pronounce it, but it's for Gil-Galad. It's going to give him might 15 starting out for the commander. You're going to get army attack and defense for elves. And the effect is a Blessing of the High King, which is for the allied army. They're going to deal extra damage up to 1% when men units perform an action up to 5 stacks. And the army is going to recover 5% HP when elven units perform an action. So we're not going to look at the build in regards to this item at all, but just for those of you who are curious what we had here, that is the R10 item there. Now let's go ahead and get into the gear before we get into the skill builds. Now there are a number of different variations, and I'm going to be putting up some graphics on the screen to show you the most ideal gold gear, kind of the best case. If you're wanting to build very, very properly, you'd want to look out for these items to save them and hopefully strengthen them over time. But I'm also going to put up a sheet that's going to show the best purple gear options. So even if you're free to play, you can see what you have and make the best choices for those things. As always, if you have any questions or maybe you don't have any of the gear listed here and you're wondering what the best case for you is, you should definitely check out the Discord, which is linked down below. There are a lot of people that would be happy to help go through and see what you have, what's the best case for you. Again, you want to look at what gear is suggested, what stats are on those gear, and match those as closely as possible. But sometimes if you don't have the exact ones, I know it's can be kind of frustrating. So feel free to check out the Discord linked below if you want to get some help on some of these builds if you don't quite have what's going on here. But the number one suggestion for the weapon is going to be the Elven White Knife with Might of Elves. Now, I've been lucky enough to get this one myself and use this, so I have what would be considered the most ideal Might of Elves. It's refined twice, strengthened all the way. I put all my gear into Gil-Galad. Obviously, more of a whale here, so you don't have to have this maxed out by any means. But this gold item here is going to be the most ideal weapon for Gil-Galad. The next piece is one I don't have currently, so I've been running something else, but it's going to be the High Elf Hauberk here. This is going to give Commander might, focus, and speed and defense for the elves, which ends up being really, really useful for them. And the effects you're going to want to look out for here are going to be resistance or fortitude of elves. Resistance, especially against evil, you're going to see a lot more use out of it there. And fortitude of elves is going to be a solid one across the board no matter what. So this is going to be the ideal gold, the gold armor piece for Gil-Galad. The next item that's going to be suggested is going to be the High Elf's Helmet. This is another one I actually do not have as well, so I ran a alternate variation here. But the High Elf's Helmet is going to give might, focus, and speed for Gil-Galad, more army defense for the elves, and the effect you want here is going to be Resolve of Elves. Something else to note here that is I think, fantastic choice, but I do think requires a little bit of refinement to make it more viable. I think the High Elf Helmet is pretty much usable out the gate. I think the Hunter's Guide with Aegis is a fantastic option. And if you happen to have this refined maybe 2 times, that's where I have mine, and I feel pretty good about that. I think it becomes a fantastic option. You do get extra army attack with this. So my Gil-Galad, every single piece I had on him gave me army attack. So I ran maybe a little bit higher damage build. So I may have sacrificed a little bit more troops, but I felt like I could punch through a little bit more stuff. So again, it can vary depending on what you have available. But if you happen to have a Hunter's Guide with Aegis, that could be one to hold on to. I mean, anything with Aegis is a fantastic piece, so I would definitely hold on to those regardless. But this is the item that I ran And I think with a little bit of refinement, can be a very, very good item. You know, if you have the gold items to look through and actually choose, but maybe you don't have the high elf helmet, which I did not, and I actually happen to have the hunter's guide, so that's a fantastic option as well. And the last item here for the accessory is going to be the silver harp of Rivendell with Might of Elves. Another one I did not quite have. I ran a different piece as well. But again, this one's going to give you might and focus and more army defense. So you want to get those elves a little bit more beefy. They need to learn from the dwarves a little bit, get some more defense going. So a lot of these items are going to help them to do that. It's going to be a fantastic setup for Gil-Galad. Now, this is the kind of ideal build that I would run for him in a non-roleplay server, which is what I'm playing. So the kind of general use and versus good, I think this is a very, very good setup. And there would be slight adjustments depending on if you're playing in a roleplay server and you're playing against evil, so you know you're going to be hitting evil commanders. There is a slight variation here. Like I mentioned on the High Elf Hauberk, you can do resistance or fortitude of elves. I think against evil, I would much prefer to have resistance over fortitude of elves on the armor piece. And the other piece changing is going to be the accessory. Against evil, if you know you're going up against evil, the fine smoking pipe can also be a fantastic option with critical care. Now, again, unless you're a pretty big whale, you may not have your choice of all these gold items to actually choose which good or evil build you want to run. So any composition of any of these items talked about is going to set you up very, very nicely. But I want to give a few options for what you could use. Again, the first sheet we looked at is kind of what I would say is the standard build. Again, I'm playing non-role play, and I didn't even run exactly all these pieces, but I think this is going to be fantastic in that regard. But against specifically evil, if you're in a role play server, you know you're fighting evil. You could look at, focusing on the resistance, getting that critical care can be pretty useful as well. But that is going to be the gold suggestions for Gil-Galad. Next up is going to be our purple suggestions. Now, I'm not going to go over these in as much detail, but as you can see up on the screen, we have a purple suggestion for every single item, all 4 of them right there with their effects that go with them. So again, for these, there is no change between good and evil. It's going to be the same if you're running those purple items. And again, whatever you've got going on. So if you've got some of the gold and some of the purple, whatever combination you can put together, maybe you have 1 gold piece, but you can't strengthen it. Stick with the purple for a little bit longer if you've got it at 3-4 stars, something like that. But I wanted to put some options out there for purple gear for those of you who are free to play or light spenders. It may not have your pick of the gold gear. This purple gear will serve you just fine. And again, if you don't have any of these examples here, look at, going to the game, even if you don't have the gear, even if you're looking at the gear and saying, well, I don't have that, how can I know what to look at? If you go to the chest and you click on the items, you can scroll through and look, so you can say, okay, I didn't have the silver harp of Rivendell. What effects are on here? What can I match up with closely in that regard? And go from there. But again, check out the Discord if you want some help. If you don't have one of these items here, a lot of people would be happy to help out with gear suggestions. Now we're getting to the good stuff. We're going to be looking at the skill suggestions for Gil-Galad. I have 2 different setups here. One is going to be, again, just like the gear, the kind of standard build and kind of the good primary build. So if you're fighting good commanders or if you're non-role playing, you're seeing a lot of both. This is what I would suggest to stick with. And then if you are playing role play and you're playing against evil, I think there can be some slight variation when you know you're going to be running into things where something like White Council may be of more use more frequently. But this right here is going to be the build. And as you can see in the sheet, the number to the left of the little icon is the priority in which that happens. So first up, we have the Kingly Ken, which is going to be maxed out 15 out of 15 here. This is in the first 2 rounds. Elves are going to have a 70% chance to evade all damage. And the max level effect there is that they're going to get 10 defense. After Kingly Ken, you're going to go over and put 2 points into Icicle, which is going to deal physical damage. We don't really care about that. But any point, at even 1 point into Icicle, is going to guarantee us a stun on 2 enemy units. So that's a point very well spent. But we're going to put 2 points there and 1 point into Dazzle. Dazzle is not a guaranteed stun, but it's a commander stun. So it just gives us that almost 15% chance to stun the commander. Again, for 1 point, it's pretty good value there. So we're going to go Kingly Ken, Icicle, Dazzle. After those, we're going to jump over to High King. It's just for all elves. They're going to receive 15% less damage, and they're going to get extra HP at the max level effect there. Then after that, we're going to go back over here to Exorbitance, which is going to give damage plus 14% for all allied units. And then wrapping up the build, we're going to max out Chaotic Retreat, which is going to give enemy units negative 35 defense, and Elven Leader, which each round elves are going to have a 25% chance to gain follow-up, which if you did not know, that means they get to initiate 2 normal attacks each round. So on rounds where you get the good RNG, where you do evade all the attacks in the first 2 rounds, and you do get Elven Leader to hit, the damage avoidance and the damage output that you're doing gets pretty ridiculous. Now, this is an R5 Gil-Galad. Again, like I said, this is the ideal situation for him is at R5. Mine is at level 50 with Imparted Wisdom. So I have 5 points left over. That means at level 45, you can run what I would call the ideal setup for Gil-Galad. With those 5 extra points, I could do one of 2 things. I could either go into Icicle and Dazzle, just back and forth to try and get that commander stun chance up a little bit more to get that to happen. So maybe if you get your respect up a little bit higher and you want that Dazzle chance to be higher, that can be good. You can also go into White Council and High Alert. At this point, I could get 1 point to High Alert, so the 7.1% isn't a whole lot for me. But maybe again, maybe if you do get that respect a little bit higher and want to get that there, if you know you're going against some evil or it's non-role play, you may find that, you know, knocking 14 to 21% off of the focus burn and poison damage could be helpful for you. But again, I thought I'd show kind of the standard bare bones build. The extra points are just a little bit complementary to what you got going on here, but this is going to be the standard build in general and versus good specifically. Now, for the troop suggestions, as you can see on the sheet, we're going to suggest 3,000 Heralds, 3,000 Sentinels, and 1,000 Bow Knights. That's going to change very slightly in a second when we look at against evil exclusively. But again, for the general build, if you're running non-role play or against good, 3,000 Heralds, 3,000 Sentinels, and 1,000 Bow Knights, you're going to do just fine there. Okay, so for the evil build, again, I would run this build if I was running in a roleplay server fighting against an evil faction, specifically where more often than not, you're going to come up against things that White Council is going to really be helpful, or specifically High Alert's going to be really helpful for. So for this build here, you're going to start off with the Kingly Ken ability, which is going to evade all damage like we talked about in the first 2 rounds, or at least have a chance to do so. Then after that, we're going to go 1 point into Icicle. We're not going to even mess with Dazzle, but just that 1 point gets us to stun. So that's a good point there. After that, we're going to max out White Council. We're going to max out High Alert. So not only do we get the damage reduction for the first 3 instances there, we also get the 50% reduction on burn damage, focus, and poison damage. That's very good. Then we're going to max out High King, which is our damage reduction. We're going to put 1 point into Elven Leader just to give us that little bit of chance. Again, it's probably not going to proc too much, but 1 point for the slight chance is usually worth it. And then we're going to use our last 5 points into Champion of the Light, which is going to give us 20% extra damage to Orcs, Trolls, and Uruk-hai, which again, if you're running against evil, you're going to see those more often. This is level 50 R5. Every single point is used. So as you get more points, if you get your respect up, if you're respect 7, you could finish maxing out Champion of the Light and then continue going into Elven Leader. But again, I would only run this. Like I'm playing non-role play. I came up against a lot of evil commanders, you know, see a lot of Witch Kings out there, stuff like that, Saurons, all that good stuff. I would not run this unless I 100% knew who I was going up against. You know, if I was playing role play and fighting only evil. But this is definitely a build specifically designed for evil. We're going to go through some reports in a second, and you'll see some situations where I did a little bit less good against evil, like a Sauron, where something like High Alert would have come in very, very handy. This can also be kind of gear dependent, depending on, as you'll see as we go through reports, with different types of gear you may have. You could get away with not going into High Alert or White Council as much and sticking with more of the other build we talked about. But again, this is the kind of against evil build. So if you're playing right now, playing as good role play, seeing a lot of evil commanders, this could be one for you to consider and see how it works for you. The troop suggestions here are going to be 3,000 Heralds, 2,500 Sentinels, and 1,250 Bow Knights. So again, 3,000 Heralds, 2,500 Sentinels, 1,250 Bow Knights for the troop setup for the evil build, we'll call this one. Now, wrapping up the video here, I wanted to show some reports so you can see how my Gil-Galad has performed all season. Again, probably the best investment I've made this season in terms of the return. This guy just does not lose very often. In fact, the entire time I've used him, I use him probably more than any commander. I think more than Witch King this season even. He has never been completely wiped at all. He has never gone up against a commander and been wiped, assuming he's full strength. He's been close a couple of times, but more often than not, he trades very well with commanders. I think the commanders he's going to struggle the most against are going to be Saurons and Grima, that with Madness, if you don't have the Madness Helm situation going. And so it seems like Khaldun also gives him trouble once in a while. But let's go ahead and look through a few reports so you can see some examples of how well he can perform on the battlefield for you. Here's an example, actually, probably the worst report I've ever gotten with my Gil-Galad, where he almost got wiped. I have literally almost one command left of the Sentinels here, but this was against a Sauron. I do have the Aegis Helm here. This is the gear I'm running, so I did not get the Madness immunity as much. If I had, that would have gone differently. The other thing on this Sauron also was the Pursuit on the Wizard's Fireworks. So my points into the Kingly Kin were kind of nulled there because he had the pursuit effect on the Wizard Fireworks there. This is one that you can struggle with, where if I had been running the different build and had more points into the high alert, this could have gone better. But again, a very, very good Sauron here, and I think the actually worst report I've seen with my Gil-Galad. So again, these are in no particular order. Just wanted to show you a few examples of what can happen. This is probably the absolute worst case with the build I was running. Here's against a Theoden here. Saw a lot of Theodens and Eowens. It does seem like the Theodens and Eowens do a pretty good job. This one went really very well for me, as you can see here. We got a very decently geared Theoden here. Good skill, and I would say we definitely took the win here, especially with how expensive cavalry is. Even with the Dragoon, who are going to take less damage from range units, who is our primary damage dealer. This was a very, very good report here against a Theoden. This is against a Dwalin here, not 100% full on the Dwalin side, but as you can see, pretty easy work of this one. Not the most amazing gear Dwalin, but again, solid build here. No problems for Gil-Galad on this one. Here's another Dwalin. Actually, this one was actually full. This was actually after attacking this Gandalf, who was not completely full, but still with a slightly less than full on my side. Still able to take out the Dwalin with no issues there. Here's a Legolas here, again, another damage dealing commander, where actually took about half of the army out here, but I'd say we did take the win there. But this is a Legolas here. Very fantastic gear on this one, so this would be a more whaled out Legolas, but we're running a pretty whaled out Gil as well. But here's another solid report for Gil-Galad. Here's a very good report. Again, this is one of the things that people love about Gil-Galad, is he counters Witch King so well. Unless the Witch King has a pursuit item like the Palantir of Orthanc, 10 times out of 10, Gil-Galad is going to do fantastic against Witch King. Again, this is not a bad Witch King by any means. It's a very good Witch King, and the losses for us are just almost nothing here. So fantastic report there against the Witch King. Here's a Gandalf here where it really stalled out a lot more. We didn't get through. Sometimes he will cut through. I don't usually wipe all the way through Gandalfs, but I've gotten pretty close. This is one where it stayed a little bit more even here. Again, you can see decent gear. You can see the build there for the Gandalf, but pretty solid report there. Another Theoden here we did fantastic against. We got a Haldir here we did great against in this report. Again, you can see the gear. This one did have the R10 item not strengthened a whole lot. But again, doing fantastic against Haldir. This report was actually after that Haldir, so even after losing some troops, a pretty significant amount, still drawing out like this against Gandalf, I think was a fantastic situation for him. Another Theoden almost completely wiped. Here's a Khaldun here. Actually, this one went very well against Khaldun. I do think Khaldun can do well against Gil-Galad, but this one, just I think everything went our way in this report. Here is the a look at the Khaldun there. I'll try and click on these skills. I know the screen kind of blocks the far right ones here, but you can see he had Iron Guard and Quicksand maxed out on both of those on the edge. But a very, very good report here against the Khaldun, who normally can give Gil-Galad some trouble. Here's a Gandalf grade that went a lot better than the other one he showed, where we kind of drawed out. This one almost completely wiped him. Just a handful of command left there against this Gandalf the Grey. Had a great report here against a Theoden, and then again, after already being weakened some, great report against an Eowyn. So fantastic stuff there. Here's a Dwalin running a Blinding Barrier with the Knights build. Did fantastic there. Here is an Aragorn, the tier 2 Aragorn. We did pretty good there. Then actually got followed up and got hit with an Eowyn. So again, got pretty low here, but this is after taking out the Aragorn. Still landing pretty well here, so felt pretty good about this one. Now, we could sit here and look at reports all day, and I can scroll through. The point of that was not just to cherry pick. I didn't cherry pick any of the reports. I showed every single Gil-Galad one I could find over the last few days. The point with Gil-Galad is he is very, very consistent. I did not have one single failure with my Gil when he was at full command. I didn't have a single defeat. Now, I have some pretty good gear on him, so this is going to be a little bit situational. So don't assume just because you have Gil at R5, you're never going to lose. There are definitely times I got close, and definitely times that the other commanders could have beat me. But the point is with him, he's very consistent. He does well against a lot of commanders. The ones to look out for are going to be the Grimas and the Saurons. I've seen Khalduns do well against a Gil. But other than that, he does really, really well. And for me, like I was running the Aegis Helm, so if I happen to get this strengthened more, or if I get the good RNG and do get that Madness immunity, those Saurons and those Grimas become a lot less effective. And so there's even less that this guy is going to struggle against. So again, he is one of my favorite good commanders. If I could go back in time, season 1 on my very first account when I was playing good, I would have put him on my wish list and focused everything into getting him as soon as possible. As time moves on, you're going to see more and more of these guys popping up around the map. You're going to see counters that are being worked on. Again, running items with Pursuit does a really good job against Gil. But at the end of the day, one of my favorite commanders, someone I'll probably use for the rest of the duration of this game, unless something major changes. I think he is absolutely fantastic. especially paired with a tier 4 unit in Lothlorien or in Linden. I think he's going to have even more potential. So again, huge fan of this commander. If you are looking for an answer on which tier 3, if you're playing good, that you should go for, I think Gil would have my vote over anybody. But yeah, that's going to do it for today's commander review video on Gil-Galad. If you did enjoy it, please hit that like button to let me know that you want to see more commander videos like this. Again, Discord links are down below. So if you want to join the Discord, if you have some questions you want to ask over there, there are lots of people that'd be happy to help out with that. But that's going to do it for me in this one, and I'll see you all in a future video.